The Yuletide Pause by Lucien Maier. "I've been through quite a few pauses in my life," she said. Her eyes twinkled and her face grew into a smile. "But the one I remember most was my third. My first was when I was 8 years old, and not a very good experience. The second was a bit better, but still not comfortable by any means. But when I was 15 was the first time I felt totally at ease. That was the year I was Santa Claus." Her eyes went dreamy, and she slipped into her own mind, the years pulling away until she sat on the edge of a bed in a burnt-out apartment. She was angry that they had to live in such a horrible place, angry that her father had died 3 years before, angry about all of it. Tears were in her mother's eyes. "Sweetie, I don't know if Santa will find us this year." Her mother tried to explain to her little brother. "Santa will find us. He's Santa." Justin mustered his confidence and made a strong statement. "Dink! Santa isn't real, and we don't have any money for presents, so no flippin' Christmas this year," she snapped out at him. The moment the words had left her lips, she had known she'd gone too far. His lips trembled and tears snapped into his eyes. He will find us," Justin said, although in a very small voice. "Sam!" her mother snapped. "I'm sick of it, Mom. I can't hear him any more," she snapped. "He's just—" Her mother began, but was cut off. "Yeah, I know. He just misses Dad, and he just wants to pretend. Well, what about what I want? I want our house back. I want our family back. I want Dad back." Sam trailed off, her eyes full of tears now. Her mother's face went red with anger, but then she thought for a moment, and a warm wave washed over her face, and she smiled at her daughter. She grabbed Justin and then slipped next to Sam, and she wrapped her arms around both of them. "I'm with you guys. I want to just break down and cry." "But you want to know why I don't?" she asked. Sam shook her head no, but Justin rolled his eyes at his sister. "Tell us, Mom," he replied. "'Cause he wouldn't. Because when it's hardest, and they all chimed in, is when you fight the hardest." They finished together, all of them thinking of Dad. He'd always been the cornerstone of the family, always the one that you could count on to be there. Just a little over 3 years ago, he had been diagnosed with cancer. They had hardly had time to react, as the disease had already made serious inroads on him. 3 months later he was gone, and for the first time they were left alone. They grieved, and people promised to help them. However, in the end, they were on their own. The bank foreclosed the house on the first anniversary of his death, and now they did whatever they needed to get by. Sam had tried to stay strong and help her mother, but the situation became worse and worse. Her mother grieved still, and had a hard time even getting out of bed in the morning. Sam and Justin had learned to become more and more self-sufficient. They spoke for a while longer and then tried to go to sleep. The last thoughts that passed through their heads as they drifted off to sleep. "I wish you were here, honey," she thought to herself as she closed her eyes and Mom went to sleep. Justin thought just maybe Santa might find them, and his eyes closed as well. Sam sat looking out of one of the windows of the apartment, noises floating up from the alley below. Maybe, she thought, if it would pause tonight, I could go get Christmas. She put the thought away the best she could. In the other 2 times it had happened, she had no control over it, no idea really what was happening. There was no way it would happen again. She closed her eyes and sleep came. In the past, her pauses had felt like a dream, but this time her eyes snapped open and she knew immediately what was happening. She looked at her brother and her mother, and they lay paused. They did not breathe nor move, and a smile hit her lips and she pulled the covers back. "I made it happen," she exulted to herself. "Not exactly, Samantha," a deep voice came. Tears popped into her eyes. Her lip trembled as she said, "Daddy?" she questioned. "No, punk, I ain't your dad," he said, walking out of the dark corner of the room. It was her father, and he had a big smile on her face. "I am your daughter," she snapped back at him. They had gone through the routine a billion times, but this time she only wanted to get to the hug at the end. She jumped into his arms, and he held her tight. "Hello, sweets," he said after their embrace had broke. "Oh, Daddy," she said, smiling, burying her face into his chest again. She stopped. A look of confusion flooded over her face. "What do you mean I didn't make it happen?" she questioned. "Well, I did, but one day you'll be able to as well," he said, smiling. "But we can talk about that on the way. Come on, Santa," he said with a smile on his face. She quickly changed into her jeans and a shirt, and came out of the bathroom half expecting her father to have disappeared. But there he sat on the couch, looking deeply at Justin. He looks so much like Mom, he said halfway in a whisper. Yeah, he's a really good boy, Dad. You'd be proud, she said. He stood and ruffled her hair, the way he'd always done to make her angry. But this time she wasn't angry. I know. I'm with you all the time, he said. Why aren't you in heaven or something? She questioned. It's not as simple as all that. The answers of the universe don't lie in what religion nor science teaches. They both have a small piece of the puzzle. You yourself have more of an understanding than any of them. But that is for you to find out on your own. So, your third pause doing much better than the first two, huh? He said. I thought I was the only one to call them a pause, she said to herself. You are, but I think it matches the situation better than anything I've heard. I mean, you're correct. It is as if someone has hit the pause button on this plane of existence. He smiled down at her. Were you there the last two? She asked. Yes and no. I was aware that they had happened, but that was in my last physical life, so I was not able to actually be there. I know how scared you were, he said. But not this time, huh? He said, smiling. She hugged him as they walked down the sidewalk. No, this time it's a dream come true, she replied. He walked up to a truck and they got in. You steal this, Dad? She asked. Yes and no. I'll bring it back and they'll never really know it was gone. He laughed, and she laughed with him, and they pulled out into the street. They visited the tree lot and got the nicest one they could find. The grocery store and stocked up the food in the house, and then they stopped at the mall to get clothes and toys. They spent over 3 hours in a wrapping department of the department store to finish all the wrapping. They talked the whole time, Sam reveling in the fact that she could ask his advice again. They loaded up and made the drive home, and as they placed the last pieces in their spots for the now very festive apartment, she started to cry. He looked over, still with a goofy grin on his face, and saw her. Sweets, what's wrong? He asked. Soon you'll be gone again, she said. No, I won't. I will be here just as much as I am with you now. I wish I could explain it all to you, but it is not your time for that. I will tell you this. You will pause again. In fact, more and more often the older you get, he said. So when do I get control over it? She asked. He laughed. Not this time around, Sweets. You'll gain control soon enough. For now, just use it to do the right thing, he said. Like loot a tree lot and grocery store and the freaking mall? She challenged him. Well, yes, this time I'm willing to bend the rules a little bit, he said, hanging the last ornament on the tree. It is for Mom and Justin. It can't be that wrong, she replied. And you, he said. Oh, Daddy, I don't care about any of the stuff. Just having you back is so wonderful, Sam replied to him. His smile grew, and he grabbed her in for a hug. You're the best, he said to her. They stayed that way for a while longer. He did not want to let her go as much as she did not want to let him. For just a few hours, the rest of the world had stopped, but Christmas had come for them. They finally broke from their embrace. He tucked her into bed on the couch, and she closed her eyes and sang a lullaby he had always sung to her when she was young. She drifted off to sleep, a small smile playing on her lips. He smiled down at her. There are many adventures waiting for you, Sam. I love you, he said. She held her eyes shut, not wanting the dream to end. She knew very well what she would open her eyes to, and for a moment she pushed it aside and stayed in the warmth of the dream's glow. Holy shit! Justin screamed. Her eyes popped open, ready to scold her brother for using the language. Her mother woke up and her breath caught in her throat. The room was decorated to the hilt in Christmas, and crammed into the corner of the apartment was a large Christmas tree, with a large ring of presents around it. Sam popped off the couch and into sitting position in front of the tree, and her brother did the same. Mom was bewildered, but decided that she would not deny her children the happiness. She slipped down in front of the tree and began handing out presents. After 40 minutes of furious unwrapping, they were finished. Sam, Justin, and their mother sat drunk by gifts in the fresh Christmas morning. Justin was playing with one of his new toys when he stopped dead, to the point that Sam thought the world had paused yet again. But then the tears rolled out of his eyes and down his cheeks. Justy, his mother asked, what's wrong? She inquired. He looked back at them and forced a smile. I was just thinking how Dad would have liked to be here, he replied. He was, Sam said. Looking down from heaven with Jesus, Justin answered. That I don't know. But I do know he was here, and he's still here now. She smiled. Her mother looked at her a bit confused, but she had said it so matter-of-fact that not only Justin, but she had believed it as well. She started the coffee and found an envelope. On the front was written, better late than never. She burst into tears. Her hand shook as she opened to reveal a safety deposit box key. Like a whisper of a ghost, she heard in her head, "I promised I'd always take care of you. I'm sorry it took so long." She snapped her head around to see who had said it, but only Sam stood behind her, smiling. "It seems, Sam, that you and your father are very special," she smiled. "No," Sam said, with more knowledge in her eyes than any other 15-year-old. "We're all special. It's just some are farther along than others," Sam elaborated. "Well then," her mother said. In the safety deposit box was not all the money they would need in the world, but it was enough for Mom to take the time to finish up college and land a good job, and they were all right again. "I will always remember that Christmas," Sam's much older face said to the 3 young children who had listened to her story so intently. "That must have been the best Christmas ever," her 5-year-old granddaughter said. "No, although a very good one. I had one better," she replied with a twinkle in her eye. "Maybe I will tell you about that one next year." The kids looked up and smiled as Sam's daughter, their mother, came in. "Is Granny telling you her crazy stories again?" she asked with a smile. "Only the truth, only the truth," Sam said and smiled. "Well, it's dinner time. Let's go sit at the table." They all got up and went in and had a wonderful Christmas dinner.